What if I told you there's a player in the NFL whose contract is worth more than the most expensive home on the entire California market? Yet most fans don't even believe he's a winning quarterback, and some teams will spend upwards of $500 million a year knowing they might not even make the playoffs. Is this some power-hungry Super Bowl-crazed obsession where billionaires are willing to blow fortunes chasing a championship ring? Or is it really just all a play to make more money behind the scenes? I wanted to find out, so today we're digging into one of the most expensive, exclusive, and fascinating business operations in all of sports, the National Football League.
And he's loose! It lands inside the 30, 20.
Let me take you back to 2015 in the Lone Star State. The Dallas Cowboys had Super Bowl aspirations. They had just gone 12-4 the year prior, with Tony Romo throwing to one of the league's best receivers in Dez Bryant, who had just inked a $70 million contract. They'd lost rushing champion DeMarco Murray to Philadelphia, but with the league's most dominant offensive line, expectations were still sky high. But then the Cowboys imploded. Romo fractured his collarbone not once, but twice. Dez was all of a sudden washed up, and Dallas cycled through backup quarterbacks like Brandon Weeden, Matt Castle, and Kellen Moore en route to a 4-12 finish. In 2014, they were elite. In 2015, they finished with the third worst record in all of football. And all of this happened as Jerry Jones watched from his luxury suite in AT&T Stadium, realizing that all the money, hype, and star power in the world still can't protect you from a season going up in flames. But that's the risk these owners take every single year. So the question is, why would anyone think that spending hundreds of millions of dollars on players, stadiums, and staff, only to risk it all crashing down in one brutal season, is a smart business decision? The 2015 Cowboys meltdown shows just how high stakes the NFL can be. But behind the injuries and season collapses is one of the most complex businesses in sports. And to understand if people like us could ever own a team of our own, we need to follow the money. This episode is sponsored by Factor. The NFL's finally here. Thursdays, Sundays, Mondays, we're done waiting. And we can also be done cooking. Factor's chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals are delivered right to my doorstep, which is perfect because the past month has been crazy. Making a video every week leading up to NFL kickoff, and taking time to keep active. But thanks to Factor, I'm able to make that happen with meals that are always fresh, never frozen. They just introduced their healthiest menu yet, and it honestly takes the guesswork out of clean eating. If I need to go to the gym but I'm hungry and don't have time to cook, luckily with this grilled filet mignon, I don't have to. They also have 3 times the amount of new weekly meals as before, so you'll never run out of delicious options to keep your diet dialed in. To see all that Factor has to offer, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code BEACHKIDFB50 to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code BEACHKIDFB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. So first, let's take a look at the NFL itself, the business behind America's favorite sport. In 2024, the NFL's central operations generated $16.5 billion, separate from everything individual teams generate locally. That's purely league-driven income. But where does that $16 billion even come from? There are a few key components. First of all, we've got national broadcasting and streaming rights, which make up the biggest slice of the pie at about 71% of NFL's central revenue, roughly $12 billion a year. Entities such as Fox, ESPN, and Amazon pay massive fees to broadcast games nationwide, including the playoffs and the Super Bowl. Next, we've got league-wide sponsorships and partnerships, bringing in around $2 billion each year. Brands like Bud Light, FedEx, and Gatorade pay big money to plaster their logos across league events and broadcasts. The third chunk comes from licensing and merchandise. The NFL makes another couple billion a year licensing team logos for jerseys, caps, video games, and collectibles. And the rest comes from miscellaneous things like the Pro Bowl and international games in places like London and Brazil. Even fines and small fees add up over time. But here's the interesting part. The NFL doesn't keep all of the money it brings in. Instead, roughly 90% of that revenue is centrally redistributed to the teams. Every club receives an equal share of national revenue, roughly $460 million per team in 2024. It's not some rich get richer situation. There are no bonus payouts for market size or history. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Roughly 40% of ticket revenue is pooled and then split equally across all 32 teams. So a team like the Cowboys is sending in a lot more cash than the Titans. But even after this sharing, the big dogs still pull in massively more. And that sounds like a lot, until you break down what it really costs to run a football team. Every big market team with hundreds of millions in payroll is also facing a mountain of expenses on top of that. First, there's player salaries. In 2024, the average team payroll hit around $250 million. The Carolina Panthers, for example, had a total cap allocation of $261 million, while the Raiders came in last at $226. But the players aren't the only expense. Take the Green Bay Packers, whose financials are public because they're publicly owned. Looking at 2023, because their 2024 financials aren't available online at the moment, they posted $157 million in selling, general, and administrative, covering marketing, advertising, finance, and front office. We'll assume that rose to $170 million in 2024. Then you've got stadium operations, which include everything from game day staff, concessions, maintenance, security, and utilities. Plus there's travel. Flights, hotels, meals for 8 or 9 games on the road, which easily racks up millions. And don't forget about other costs required to develop a winning football team. Scouting, software and databases, nutrition, training facilities, practice squad, and training camps. These essential but often forgotten costs help build the roster and are not cheap. Summing it all up, payroll, SG&A, stadium operations, travel, and other costs can push a team's annual expenses well into the $600 to $700 million range and beyond, a number that's competitive with the local revenue these teams generate combined with their share of the NFL's central revenue. But with a hard salary cap, unlike Major League Baseball, the richest teams can't just indulge in near unlimited spending and pay a luxury tax, which makes for a more even playing field across the league. In short, the true cost of competing at the highest level in football is staggering, and it takes more than just money to win. But if the NFL has a hard salary cap, unlike baseball, and thanks to even revenue sharing and a massive national TV pie, there are minimal small market disadvantages, how do teams find an edge? Well, like any capped system, the trick isn't how much you spend, it's how you spend it. Smart franchises in the NFL don't just manage the cap, they manipulate it. They exploit loopholes, backload deals, and use tools like void years, restructures, and signing bonus conversions to stretch dollars across multiple seasons. A handful of front offices have turned cap wizardry into an art form. The Cowboys actually have a director of salary cap and player contracts. And as many of you know, the biggest cheat code in the NFL is having a great quarterback on a rookie deal. This gives you a window to build a super team. Efficiency, not extravagance, separates the contenders from the rest. So what does that mean for people like us? Could we just buy a team and get into the NFL if we had the cash? Well, not exactly. First off, NFL franchise values have hit record highs. The average NFL team is now valued at $7.1 billion, with the Cowboys hitting $13 billion, and even the cheapest franchise, the Cincinnati Bengals, come in at $5.3. You'd need billions just to buy one, and the league plus the current owners have to approve the sale. But launching a brand new team would cost even more. Expansion hasn't happened since 2002, nor does it ever need to happen again, honestly. But just for the sake of exercise, a new franchise would have to pay an expansion fee likely upwards of $5 billion. Even conservatively, a $4 billion fee would net the current owners $125 million each. That's a lot of gatekeeping. You'd also need deep pockets for a brand new stadium. Most today will cost at least $2 billion to build. Allegiant Stadium in Vegas was $2.3, while SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California was $6.7 billion. No stadium, no team. Legally, that usually means securing a public-private partnership, with cities often covering 40 to 60% of stadium construction costs through bonds or subsidies. But that also adds hundreds of millions of dollars in political hoops to jump through. So we'll be on the hook for roughly 50% of the stadium cost. Therefore, after the expansion fee, stadium, and operational setup, we're looking at $6 or $7 billion to create a world-class football ecosystem out of thin air. Then there's the non-monetary barrier, the NFL's rigorous vetting process for new owners. The commissioner's office performs deep financial reviews, and all 32 teams vote on any sale or expansion. Might sound harsh, but that's how they protect the entire league. It's like trying to join the world's most exclusive country club. And now that we know how teams spend the money, let's talk about how they make the money locally. Because as many football fans have learned the hard way, owning a football team isn't just about winning games or signing big-name superstars. It's about turning all that spending into a profitable business. Otherwise, no one would keep dropping $600 million a season just for fun. So where does the real money come from? First off, local media. But unlike baseball, where regional sports networks alone can be worth 100 or 200 million a year for big market teams, this makes up only about 2% of NFL teams' total revenue, because nearly all TV inventory is controlled at the league level, while the local media rights only pertain to radio and preseason games. Ticket sales and stadium revenue are next. Beyond paying for seats, fans buy food, drinks, parking, and teams make tens of millions per season off of luxury suites. Often sold to businesses for client entertainment, these are high margin and repeatable. The Cowboys, with their unique setup, made an absurd $130 million off of suites in 2024. In total, we're talking anywhere between $5 and $15 million in revenue per home game depending on the market. Then local sponsorships and advertising, from in-stadium signage to on-field promotions. Those generate millions per year. And for some teams, real estate development around the stadium brings in even more long-term revenue. Just look at the Packers, who built Titletown, a $300 million mixed-use district right next to Lambeau Field, with restaurants, apartments, a luxury hotel, office space, and other attractions like an ice rink and sledding hill. Titletown has become both a fan destination and a profitable business venture, generating steady returns beyond what the team makes on game days. In total, local revenues easily add up to $300, $500, or even $800 million in one season if you're the Dallas Cowboys, who are the only team that generates more revenue locally than they receive from their share of the national revenue. So these organizations are building revenue engines designed to pay off over time. And with those numbers, suddenly a contract worth a few hundred million spread over a half-decade doesn't sound so daunting. But this brings us back to our big question. Are NFL teams actually turning a profit, or are owners just burning cash for fun? It turns out many, or really all teams, are financially prosperous in reality, yet owners will try to present them in a more modest way. That's because reinvesting profits and certain accounting methods can make even a successful, revenue-rich team look less profitable on the books to cut taxes or downplay revenue. Let's take the 2023 Packers again. They generated a total of $610 million in revenue with a net income of $35 million. But in terms of actual cash, it was likely even higher. This is because of depreciation and amortization. Teams write off depreciation expenses on paper for physical assets like the stadium to account for aging and wear and tear. These are non-cash expenses that reduce net accounting income but don't impact actual cash flow. But profitability is only part of the story. What really speaks to the appeal of NFL ownership is the massive growth in franchise valuations over the past decade. A handful of teams have already surpassed or are approaching $10 billion valuations. According to Forbes, the average team value in the NFL now sits at $7.1 billion, a 25% increase just since 2024, and a 104% jump from 2021. Leading the charge are the Dallas Cowboys at $13 billion, the Rams at $10.5, Giants at $10.1, the Patriots at $9, and the 49ers at $8.6 billion. And as I stated earlier, no team is valued below $5. Take the Cowboys. Purchased by Jerry Jones for just $140 million in 1989, they became the first sports team ever valued over $10 billion in August of 2024. Just 1 year later, 13. Jerry Jones has benefited from a jaw-dropping 9,200% return in under 37 years. Why this surge? Well, number one, scarcity of franchises. Obviously, there are only so many teams, and each one is a regional monopoly. The NFL is a money machine, and owning a piece of it might be the safest investment in sports. It all starts with the TV money. The league locked in $125 billion worth of media deals through the early 2030s. But that number could climb even higher, because in 2029, the NFL can opt out and renegotiate, especially after seeing the NBA just land an eye-popping $76 billion package of its own. On top of that, the NFL just made a major move by trading the NFL Network and other media assets to acquire 10% of ESPN, giving it even more control over its media empire. But it's not just TV. The league's marketing and sponsorship revenue is booming too, and internationally, the NFL is just getting started. Teams are finally putting real money and effort into growing their global fan bases, which could open up brand new revenue streams in places like Germany, the UK, and beyond. Best of all, every team is profitable. Last season, the average NFL team banked $127 million in operating income. Even the lowest team cleared 21. Compare that to Major League Baseball, where 11 teams actually lost money. So it's no surprise that NFL team values are skyrocketing. According to Forbes, franchises are now valued at 11 times their revenue, a huge jump from just 6x 5 years ago. So the fact of the matter is, every NFL franchise is making money hand over fist, and their rapid increase in valuation is a ginormous cherry on top. Still, the owners will try to spin you the story that they're strapped for cash. So could we ever own an NFL team? No. Well, technically yes, but not without billions in cash and a dogfight through the league's ultra-exclusive gatekeeping. That's because the NFL is far more than football. It's a masterclass in turning a game into an empire. Teams have evolved from mere sports clubs into 10 or 11-figure entertainment brands, and buying in means navigating a web of legal, financial, and infrastructure roadblocks. Even if I'm not signing a purchase agreement anytime soon, understanding how a Jaguars London game or an Eagles flag represents millions or billions makes football that much more interesting to watch. If this got you curious, act like an owner. Look into what it really takes to purchase and then operate an entire organization, and you'll see why the NFL, as lucrative as it may be, isn't for the faint of heart. If you enjoyed this video, let's relive the greatest NFL season of the 2010s.